technology that they would miss out on other things. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So first, looking at digital natives. So it's only going to get worse. Your students are only going to get more and more tech savvy. They're only going to get more and more caught up in looking at things individually. So this is something that we really need to, again, shift or get off the pot. We really need to be able to make that shift as teachers and to really be able to make those adjustments to our own teaching methods. So first of all, looking at the digital natives. What do they need in order to be successful? What do they need in order for, what do we need to provide them with? How do we get them prepared for their futures? What is their future world going to look like? So one of the things that I saw in the lecture, or in the lab, when I walked around to different labs and listened to some of your discussions and also looked at your worksheets, was that you talk a lot, some of you mentioned that you're really nervous that students are going to become too heavily reliant on technology and that they're not going to know how to do things the old way, the way in which we used to do things. So let me provide you with one example. So the Dewey Decimal System, use it for libraries, okay? How many of you learned how to do the card Dewey Decimal System? You raise your hand if you have. Where you go into the library and you pull out the cards and you check to see like where the book is and take it out and go look for it. Okay? All right. Put your hands back up and look around. Okay. Now put your hands down. Now I want you to indicate, those of you that have been using the library system, hopefully all of you, right? How many of you have used the Dewey Decimal card catalog system at the IU library? Anybody? Nobody? Okay. What about how many of you have used the online search function in order to locate a book or something else that you may use? Okay, and now look around. All right, so when we're preparing our students, when I'm preparing my students, what I might do is when I have time to, instead of teaching the Dewey Decimal System, maybe what I do is how to teach them how to search online for things and how to do better searches and richer searches and search for, through other libraries. Now, what happens if the IU library system goes down? What will you do? How will you find a book? Anybody have an answer?
Google it.
You Google it, okay, sure. What else? What? The old way? Okay, so you can go and you can, look up the Dewey Decimal System. What if you haven't been taught that? What if you don't know how to do that anymore?
You just wait a day. You'll fix it.
You wait a day and you'll fix it. You need that book right away because you procrastinated to write your paper, and you need it in order to have, copy this one particular statistic. What do you do? Bother everyone until they find the book. You can go to a librarian. You can ask somebody else, right? So there is a solution. Just because you don't know the Dewey Decimal System doesn't mean you're not going to find your book. Okay? So I just wanted to share that example as technology is not always going to necessarily, technology is replacing things. There are more efficient ways for us to do it. It takes a lot less time for you to sit there and type in the book and look at the card number, as opposed to go to the Dewey Decimal System, look up education, and then file through until you say, oh, this, this looks good. This looks like something that I want to do. So, as teachers, we may need to make decisions. What kind of things are we going to teach our students? What kind of things are going to make them successful in their futures? That's your role as a teacher, is to figure out what's important and what's not important, and to navigate through that. So from some of your pre-lecture activities, these are some of your quotes from different folks up here, the seniors up there. Rock on, did a great job. I just want to read one particular outstanding summary as you check these out up here. Digital natives are used to receiving information really fast. They like to parallel process and multitask. They prefer their graphics before their text, rather than the opposite. They prefer random access like hypertext. They function best when networked. They thrive on instant gratification and frequent rewards. They prefer games to serious work, which is true in my own personal experience. On Tuesday in my Sociology of News class, my professor asked us, how many of you feel bored after 5 minutes of me lecturing? How many feel that college students need to be entertained? I couldn't believe it, but I did feel almost as bored because she seemed to talk at a slow, boring pace, and I didn't feel entertained at all. I'm a digital native. Okay, so digital natives, basically, they have a different way of processing information. They have a different way of looking at things. They mix things. They recreate things. They process information that they're given because there's so much. Again, from last week, during our lecture, we looked at how many words, 5 times as many words as in Shakespeare's time right now. We have so much more information thrown at us or available to us through Google that we need to figure out a way to process that information and make sense for us. So as digital natives, that's what they need to do in order to be successful. Very different from maybe even us, maybe even you, back a couple of years ago. So it is becoming more and more just a very different way of processing information. They remix things, they create it in order to understand their world. And I love this one at the bottom too that talks about their 14-year-old brother who's not even going to be able to imagine a classroom without technology like that. So here's a 14-year-old that has technology. When you get out in 4 years, or however many more years it's going to take you, could be a super senior, sure, why not? You need to think about what is education going to look like, how is it going to change, and then what do I need to do in order to make sure that my students will be successful for their futures. It's going to change even more, so you need to really think about it. So when you were asked, how should our practice change in order to meet these needs, you responded, in general, that we should adjust as much as possible. Why should we try and force students to learn it our way if it's not going to be successful for them? Think about if all day long you have no access to computers, and then in school we force you to use computers all day long, and then when you leave school again, no access to computers. We're not really necessarily prepping you for the future. It's the same thing. Students are surrounded with technology, just like you are as well, right? You have your cell phones, you have Facebook going on in the background, you have your music playing in either your iPod, you're texting to your friends at all at the same time, and then when you come in here, we're not using technology. You're just being taught yet. Okay? So we really need to think about adjusting our methods. How do we prepare them? And I especially like the bolded statements that I have up here. Why should we make learning frustrating if students are going, why should we make learning frustrating, if students will do poorly? So why are we going to force them to learn it in a different way if they're not going to learn it as well? If they're not going to be prepared, if they're not going to be successful? And then like the bottom one I really like too. If a student feels as though they are wasting their time by going to class, something needs to change. Hopefully by going to class and by engaging in learning, you're not wasting your time in here. We're hoping to make you think about things in a different way in order to make you more successful teachers. So that's the hope, that we need to change. We need to try and adapt our methods in order to best support our students to make them as successful as possible. So what is our responsibility as teachers? Our responsibility, again, to prepare our students for their futures, to make sure that they're going to be successful. So in order to do that, I'm going to show you this quick video. And as